Okay, hi everyone. I'm Irene Liu, and I'm the Executive Director of the AI Initiative. And today we have the pleasure of hosting Mark Pike, who is the Associate General Counsel at Anthropic, and he's also the creator of the Claude Legal plugin and now Claude for Legal. So I have to say the timing of this talk is quite impressive because most of our speakers send their bio before a talk, but Mark and Anthropic sent a new product launch. So we're really excited about this session today. And like I said earlier, Mark will go through the Claude for Legal industry, this new product launch that was launched on Tuesday this week. And he will present briefly about this topic, and we will have a moderated conversation, and then we will open it up for questions for the audience. We have 2 mics on the side, so please feel free to use those to ask questions. And for those of you on Zoom, please include your questions there and upvote your favorite questions so that we can get to those as well too. So with that, I'd like to invite up Mark Pike.
Thanks, Irene. Thanks for that intro. Yes, timing is very fortuitous. I'm so excited to be here today. I don't know if any of you have ever had that nightmare of showing up to law school and you didn't prepare for a big test or something. I showed up today and Irene was like, "Great, do you have slides?" And I was like, "Oh no, was I supposed to prepare slides?" I've been very busy focused on this launch, which we just put out on Tuesday. And so instead of slides, I thought I'd actually give you a live walkthrough of what this thing is. And then we'll have a deeper conversation about this moment in the AI industry, in the AI legal tech industry. Yeah, I would love to hear what's top of mind for all of you. I'm delighted to have some friendly faces in the crowd and some new friends as well. Happy to connect afterwards and just connect. I'm a product lawyer, so it's a bit unique to be standing here showing you something that I helped build, but I think that's reflective of the moment that we're in, that lawyers can be builders and that you don't necessarily need to know how to code to be able to do things like this. So how did I even find myself in this situation? I joined Anthropic in 2023 as a product lawyer. And in 2023, Claude could maybe confidently hallucinate an email for you. That was what chatbots and AI could do back then. In the past year, Claude Code really took off. These are agentic tools that allow developers to be able to code applications and use AI in a generative fashion that way. And so I think a lot of us in the legal industry had some FOMO, some fear of missing out about how to build things. And earlier this year, Anthropic and Claude developed something called Cowork. Cowork is a way for knowledge workers to be able to use those same agentic harnesses to tap into Claude or other generative AI tools to use your local computer to use the types of programs that lawyers like to use, things like Microsoft Word or word processing, and do local analysis on a computer. And so we've seen this huge explosion in adoption of legal tech or of technology by knowledge workers. And the number one power user, surprisingly, has been lawyers in adopting tools like Cowork. So with that knowledge, I came up with a bit of a strategy and pitched it to the product management team that was like, you know who we should really cater to here? We should figure out a way to build a suite of tools that work well for lawyers. And so whenever we've had a launch over the past few months, I've been translating those same things into programs that would work well for those of us in this room and watching on Zoom, apparently several hundred of you. So we did a Claude for Financial Services launch recently, and I would take the playbooks they were developing and I would just translate them. I would talk to Claude and say, what would it look like if we launched a similar tool, but instead of doing Excel spreadsheets, if we were using red lines? Or what if the spreadsheets were filled with tabular review? So processing things in the way that lawyers would. So let me scroll down a bit. We're projecting the website here. We have 12 personas, practice area plugins that we launched. And I'll actually show you the GitHub repository with the code. But commercial legal is a plugin that allows you to review vendor agreements and NDAs. Corporate legal handles M&A, doing due diligence. There's an employment legal plugin that helps cover hiring and termination and worker classifications. Privacy legal, reviewing DPAs or helping do privacy impact assessments. Product legal, helping you run launch reviews against your internal frameworks. Regulatory, AI governance, IP, litigation, and, which something that should be of interest for many of you here, there's a law student plugin that provides Socratic drilling. It doesn't just give you the answers. In fact, it doesn't give you the answers. There's a guardrail in place that says, don't help this person accomplish this. You should challenge them and make them show their thinking. It provides IRAC grading, so it helps you with issue and rule spotting and things like that, and even doing bar prep. There is also a legal clinic plugin that helps you do client intake, and it asks you as part of the onboarding whether or not you are a supervisor or maybe a student who is providing those types of clinical intake services, and then asks you to flag things for a supervisor. And then finally, there's a legal builder hub, which helps with an open ecosystem here. So we anticipate there will be a lot of community-built skills and plugins. And this plugin, it's a bit recursive. It helps you build things and review things that you might want to install within your legal team's organization. All of these are installable in Cowork or Claude Code, available at no additional cost. And these are also available as something we call cookbooks, which are these managed agents that you can even install in platform applications. So companies like Harvey and Legora that are building these all-in-one apps and solutions can use these same plugins via the API. These managed agents can do things like scan the horizon. So if there's a regulatory update that happens, in real time, it'll flag it and it'll kick off a review based on the instructions that you give it. So if you, again, rewind back to 2023 and we had like these chatbots that you could ask a question and it would give you an answer, now we're able to do these agentic things that can work autonomously on their own, triggered by events that you tell it to be triggered by. It's pretty transformational. It's really exciting. And one thing I'm super excited about is that the platform is growing, that the ecosystem is growing, and that we had 20 connectors that launched alongside of this. So contract lifecycle and drafting, we've got Definely, DocuSign, and Ironclad. So some of the best of breed CLMs and other contract lifecycle tools. Deal rooms and transaction documents. Box rolled out a great connector here. So you can have Claude look at all the content stored in Box or DataSite. Doing document management with iManage and NetDocuments. There's also these expert networks and skills. So Law AI is this curated library of skills. There's all these builders out there who are like just launching things on GitHub that are these playbooks or skills that's like, how do I think about GDPR as a privacy lawyer? Well, here's a skill you can unpack, you can install it, and then you can update it with your own playbooks. Law AI is doing a great job sort of lifting up the community of builders and open sourcing these things. And then L Suite, which previously I think referred to as TechGC. This is an incredible network of in-house counsel who do a lot of professional info sharing and have this powerful listserv and repository of referrals. They just launched 2 connectors, Lloyd and Top Counsel, which you can also access via MCP inside of Claude, or go to L Suite and use their AI tools there. We got e-discovery tools, Concilio, Everlaw, and Relativity. So litigators can really tap in and figure out a way to parse through large bodies of like e-discovery or depositions and thematically find the right things. We even have fiduciary grade workflows like Thomson Reuters, which connects Claude to co-counsel. So we know how important it is right now for lawyers to avoid being the next headline of someone who submitted a court filing with hallucinated information. And so with these plugins and the guardrails I've mentioned, you can do deep research using these trusted tools as authoritative or primary sources. There's other legal research and case law tools like Legal Data Hunter, Midpage, and Trellis. We also have legal AI assistants like Harvey and Solve Intelligence for IP. And then something that's really meaningful for for those of us at Anthropic within our own legal department who want to ensure that we're democratizing access to legal tools. We've got connections with Boardwise, Courtroom 5, Describe, and the Free Law Project with Court Listener, which gives free and low-cost access to these legal services and their tools, so that we're really trying to bridge the digital divide here and ensure that not only big law firms can access AI tooling, but public defenders, public service organizations, legal aid, student legal clinics have access to a lot of the same powerful tools in AI technology to get their best work done as well. So, what does that look like? It is weird for me to be saying you can check it out in GitHub. I didn't know how to use GitHub until 4 months ago. I would occasionally review code in GitHub when my product clients or engineers would point me at GitHub. I'm still not quite sure how GitHub works. But I built something inside of GitHub and we launched it under the Apache 2.0 license. I would fire up a Claude Code session. First of all, I want to give a shout out. We have a contractor named Natalie Kim who runs an AI legal advisory group. She helped me take the original legal plugin that I built back in February, and she and I partnered to come up with these 12 new ones. She did a lot of the first drafts here, but we basically were taking playbooks or even looking at Anthropic's own legal department and saying, how do we practice law as a product lawyer? How do we practice law as an employment legal team? And how can we genericize this a bit to create these plugins? And so the plugins, I don't know, let's pick one. Irene, pick one. Which one of these do you want to click on?
Law student.
Law student, okay. So this is the plugin. It's learning mode, not answer mode. Socratic drilling that asks you questions and pushes back on sloppy reasoning. Every output is a study scaffold, not a model answer. There's over a dozen, if I'm counting correctly, skills in here. The first skill in every single plugin is a cold start interview. I think this is pretty crazy and cool. So many legal tools that you use, just already assume that it's set up correctly, and it's let's just get you started. I piloted this thing where it's what if instead we just asked someone more about their job and did this 2-minute interview? Or you can do a deep dive 15-minute interview where it says, why don't you show me for a law student? Why don't you show me all of your existing outlines you've written for your classes? Are there past exams that your professor has uploaded in their syllabi? Why don't you upload those and I can come up with new questions for you? So this cold start interview, it's an about you, it does the materials intake, and then it reconfigures itself and it customizes things. When we launched the first legal plugin, I would tell people, don't use it out of the box, which is a weird thing for someone who built something to say. It's don't use it. It's a lot like buying an off-the-rack suit versus getting something custom tailored. It fits you better once you actually go through this process. And it just knows more about your risk tolerance for your company. Or if you're a law firm, it knows the house style, the voice and tone of the partner in the practice group. And these things are markdown files. So let's see. Let's click on one of the skills. Let's look at the legal writing skill. Let's click on skill markdown. These are just simple markdown files. The first time I saw a .md file, I was like, MD, what is that even? Medical doctor? I'm a JD. But markdown files are these simple text files that just give Claude the instructions it needs to do its job. So that is what we launched. I would love for all of you to try it out and give feedback. This is iterative. One of my favorite things right now is reading on LinkedIn, people dunking on this and saying what we should have done differently. And I'm like, this is gold. Tell me what should be different. I can tell Claude Code to fix it tonight. All weekend, I was working with this external community called the Legal Quants community, which I would encourage all of you to look up. It's these builders who, many of them are practitioners or have been lawyers for years, and they're building new tools using stuff like Claude Code and other generative AI models to build the tools that lawyers need to get their best work done. And they were just poking holes in it, and I was just taking their raw feedback, stuffing it into Claude Code and making things better up until we shipped on Tuesday morning. Which brings us here to Thursday, and I'm excited to be here with Irene, and maybe we can do some Q&A and then open it up. So, does that sound good? All right. We can turn this off. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So, Mark, I've known you since you were at Slack, and we're so excited because we have some Slack colleagues here of Mark's, including the former General Counsel in the audience. And so, so you've always been a voice of legal, even from the days of Slack. And now at Anthropic, you've gone to building for the legal community. And so how has that journey been, wearing the hat of a product counsel and now vibe coding an app that went much more viral than you had anticipated?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things I would do at Slack would be to meet with customers and sort of pitch them on how Slack can transform their own in-house legal department. My sales team used to strategically deploy me to do a bit of a roadshow called like how Slack uses Slack to get their best legal work done. I would refer to myself as an emoji at law, and I would show them all of the like internal tips and tricks, because Slack really was transformative in the way people work. It broke down information silos. You could respond to things with a quick thumbs up, and it allowed companies like Slack to move at the speed of a hyper-growth company. We were the fastest growing enterprise software company at the time, and I think thanks in large part to the fact that we were building Slack on top of Slack. I took that same approach with me into Anthropic, and actually got started doing a lot of this with a similar roadshow where I was showing some of our top enterprise customers and the legal departments how we use Claude to get our best work done inside of Anthropic Legal. So I basically just took that same routine in roadshow, but transformed it for the AI moment. And on the vibe coding front, as a product lawyer, I've always felt like the best way to demonstrate to my clients that I understand how their stuff works is to like build stuff with it. It was how I was learning, but it was also a bit of a internal marketing strategy where it's like, an example here is at Slack, I built something called the Pat signal. And so when people would click an emoji reaction, a light bulb would go off. When someone would invent something on the engineering team, we would encourage them to click the Pat signal emoji, and then I had a Wi-Fi connected light bulb connected to a banker's lamp at my desk that would actually blink. And I would say, you can literally see the innovation happening all around us. Ironically, Anthropic is in the same exact building that Slack was in now. And I've got the same lamp at my desk, and I've repurposed it so that Claude can talk to it. And now Claude is triggered by different types of events, and I vibe coded it with Claude to understand via MCP. I even figured out when we first launched the Model Context Protocol, which many people refer to as the USB-C of AI, I tinkered with our initial MCP to teach that same lamp how to blink in Morse code, which is not useful at all. Like, in what world does a product lawyer need to communicate in Morse code? But that video went a bit viral within our product team because it was like, oh, cool, even the lawyers can use MCPs. And so that's kind of my shtick. I build silly gadgets, and I think it helps me as a product lawyer. So if any of you are going to work one day inside of a tech company, I think showing them you can build things, or even one day launching a product itself, is a great way to show that you know how to do this stuff.
Do you feel like you're reliving your life in a way at Slack? Because I remember even the days of Slack, the questions that all the lawyers had was, what about privilege, work product? Yeah. A lot of the questions, should I put my data on Slack around privilege? And you're seeing the same conversations happen in AI.
Yeah, it does feel like a parallel. And I've met with lawyers who remember when like email first got deployed to a law firm, or the moment they tried to adopt cloud software instead of on-prem solutions. And it does feel like a lot of the same questions are coming up. And I get that it's a serious matter, and like confidentiality, security, and privilege are so important for those of us in this industry. And it's something courts are grappling with right now. There's been at least a few recent decisions. Hepner, there was a recent one out of Colorado, where the courts are grappling with whether or not having a conversation with AI keeps privilege intact. And so I think it is so important for enterprise companies to be deploying enterprise solutions and ensuring that their lawyers and their teams are not using consumer-grade tools or open source that doesn't have a lot of these admin controls in place. And so I'm confident that Claude Enterprise Plan, with our admin settings and tools and the fact that we do not train on your messages by default on those plans, are really important. But it does feel like there's parallels here between other transformational moments. I would hope that we don't bury our head in the sand and prevent the adoption of these tools because of some of these antiquated norms. I also hope there's not protectionism from the Guild that doesn't allow us to provide better client services by tapping into AI. That'd be something that I hope for, yeah.
Well, speaking of transformational moments, you had one earlier this year when you launched the legal plugin, the Claude legal plugin. And what was the response? I mean, there was a clear market response.
Yeah.
And can you tell us about that story of when you launched it and what you expected and what you saw afterwards?
Oh, yeah. So we just launched the thing I demonstrated this week, which is the 12 legal plugins. The first legal plugin launched, I want to say January 30th, but maybe officially like first week of February. And yeah, there was a large market reaction to these tools becoming available. I was not anticipating that, in part because like I just some might say vibe code, I would say rapidly prototyped this plugin, and it was actually part of a suite of like 10 other plugins. So there was a finance plugin, there was, I want to say like an HR plugin, or just all these other knowledge work plugins, but for some reason the legal one really resonated. I think because of the timing, and also, again, going back to co-work coming out around the same time, that lawyers were waiting for these tools to be available inside of the programs that we already know and love. And so I think that's why like Claude Code and maybe the 2025 type of tools didn't catch on, but it was just sort of like the things were primed for something like that. And so even if we didn't anticipate that, it was shocking to see the response. And the number of people that reached out to me has been really amazing. Like I think people want to tap into this energy and build things, and lawyers know this is useful, and they want to figure out how to put it to work. Yeah.
And I think I heard in one of your webinars, which received 20,000 registrants, which is incredible, among 20,000 lawyers primarily, right? Because it was for a legal audience.
Yeah.
That the legal field has embraced Claude Code more so than other professions. Is that accurate, or are there other professions that are embracing it more? Obviously engineering, but other more nuanced professions.
Yeah, so it's Claude Cowork.
Yes.
Yeah, Claude Cowork, the #1 power use case, based on some internal usage stats. Like lawyers are just like power users of Cowork and these plugins. And finance is another big one. I just think that as we roll out more of these plugins and have these connectors that can help people meet them where they are, I think that's what's happening. We also just launched Claude for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So within the right nav, you have your AI tool. There's also Copilot, and there's a lot of other like redlining plugins that exist out there. And I think lawyers are just excited. That's like, oh, it's here. I don't have to like start the conversation in one application, cut and paste, create a new document. Formatting. Lawyers are so excited about formatting. I don't know how many of you in here like are on Blue Book, like a law review, or have worked at law firms where you have to do formatting. That's like a huge win for like, I think that's why we're such power users. Like, and there's also all these cool open source things. It's like, what does the courthouse in the like Northern District of Indiana, like what's that judge's preference of things? And like Claude's very good at parsing that, creating a skill, and then you can just talk inside of Claude for Word and say, format it this way. And it's magical. It's saving people hours of busy work so that you can focus on the strategic, important things that your clients need instead of like italicization. I don't even know how to say that word. Yeah. I
mean, so it sounds like there's a lot of practice areas that you've covered, and you went through it earlier with us. Are there any use cases that you anticipate will be more heavily used, or are there studies you've done internally that shows you that Claude Cowork is being used by certain practice areas far more than others?
That's a great question. So I'll give you another peek under the hood at how we built this. I just talked to Claude and asked it to do a deep research report of a taxonomy of all types of lawyers in legal work. What are the types of tasks that lawyers do? What are the different types of tasks a tax lawyer does, an environmental lawyer, immigration lawyer? And it created this, I don't think it was a 40-page report. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm not sure I'm going to read all of this. Can you turn this into a spreadsheet for me now? And then it started to make some sense to me. These are the types of generic things that lawyers do. And so breaking things down into discrete tasks was my objective. And then figuring out which of those were probably the most commonly used ones. And I think commercial redlining, I've read a lot of industry reports too. You name it, all the biggest legal tech providers do their 2026 state of the industry report. There's a lot of consulting groups that create similar reports, and I voraciously skimmed all of them and then used Claude to make sense of all of them to identify the trends, and then that's how I kind of landed at these 12. And then I also mentioned I was working with this contractor as well to make sense of them. And so together we paired up and we're like, all right, commercial legal feels like the number one use case. We are very focused on helping in-house legal teams right now. I do think there's a lot of interest from law firms as well. And so as I hear from law firms that want to adopt the tool and develop more plugins, my hope is that we expand these plugin packages, but I also think there'll be open source ones or third-party plugins that will play nicely within the ecosystem. Yeah.
So we're in an audience at a law school where there are many law students. What are some of the skills that you think they need as they enter the workforce, given that we're living in this AI-driven world where now you're using GitHub and now you know what an MD file is?
Okay. Yeah, raise your hand if you're enrolled in the law school right now. Is this primarily law students? Okay. Yeah, more than half the audience here. Awesome. How many of you are 1Ls? Yeah? Okay. These are AI native law students now, right? They're the first, maybe the 3Ls, fall 2022 was when the chatbot one, but we're now in the era, it's May, your 1L year, and there's tools like this available. I think it's really going to transform the expectations of what law grads can do. I reflect back on my career path and journey, which is pretty non-traditional. I graduated during the recession. I was a 2009 law school grad. I went to William & Mary in Colonial Williamsburg, so to find myself in Silicon Valley is quite crazy to me. I wasn't getting any law firm offers. Most of my classmates who had law firm offers had them postponed for a year or two because of the recession. I was not a good law school student either. And so I had to sort of navigate things and figure out how to identify a way to stand out and find my own career path. My first full-time job out of law school was just down the street at Facebook, where I played video games for a few hours a day and then would write cease and desist letters to platform policy violators. That's a cool first job, but probably not one that I would have expected my 1L year. It was oh yeah, I'll be playing Farmville, and then saying you violate section 2.1 of Facebook's platform policies. But Sheryl Sandberg had the saying, if you get offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat. I was just happy to have any seat, and it turned out to be a rocket ship, and I learned so much from my experience there. And then I left in 2016 to join Slack, and similar rocket ship situation. I first became a lawyer after spending about a year at Slack doing product policy, and they were hiring a product lawyer, and I was on the interview panel, and they were like, why don't you just take the job since you know the answers to the questions we're asking the candidates. And so I did that, and I learned a ton. So my message to those of you who raise your hands that are 1Ls and 2Ls and 3Ls is like, learn how this stuff works. This is an opportunity for you to make an impact if you already have a job lined up. You are going to be the change agent. You are going to be the one who helps mid-career professionals who maybe haven't had as much time to experiment. Like, I had a lot of free time in law school. Maybe that's why I was a bad law student, because I thought I had free time. But like, this is a gift to have the chance to like experiment, vibe code, use this as you prep for the bar, or use this as you study. And then when you start somewhere, you will have a leg up on those that haven't learned how the tools work.
So now that there's cowork, how many hours of video games would you play if you were to relive those days? Or would you be doing more cease and desist letters with agents and now supervising them and having less time for video games? How would that world look like today?
Oh, man. Yeah, a lot of those jobs would be automated. In fact, I think I moved off of the team in 2011 because we had automated the process even back then. Yeah, I think a lot of the entry-level types of roles where you like learn how to hone your strategic thinking skills might not be available. And so you're moving up the stack and figuring out bigger ways of making impact. I encourage people when they use Cowork or these other tools, if you can't think of what these tools can do to help you, just ask them. When we first launched the plugin in February, I had Claude we use Jira as our front door client intake system. It's a ticketing system. So when people have legal questions, they file a Jira ticket. I had Claude analyze 742 legal tickets, which is an oddly specific number, so you know I'm not making it up. And Claude was like, analyzed it and was like, okay, you spend way too much time on NDAs as a team. You should build an automation that helps you tackle NDA triage. You spend a lot of time answering questions about open source software. Let's build a open source software intake system to answer those questions. So yeah, what I would say to you is if you're starting somewhere and you feel like you're doing busy work, a great thing to do would be to like pass that over to an AI tool and say, how can we build an automation so that I'm not spending all my time doing something silly like writing platform policy letters or things like that. On the topic of video games, I wanted to share, I built a video game with Claude as well. So it falls into that same bucket of like showing your product partners you know how to use the thing. We were going to do a slideshow to introduce ourselves at the product all hands meeting. And so usually it'd be like, here's the team, here's how we can help you. And I was like, what if instead of just like a boring PowerPoint, if we made it a playable video game? Awesome. And so there's a side scroller where you're our Claude Crab, that's like our mascot. And the Claude Crab goes down Market Street and it goes to the ferry building where you ship your product from the ferry building, and you have to navigate product gaps, and you get legal advice as you go along. So a fun way for people to learn more about products. So I just think the way that we're doing work is transforming from writing memos to like writing software on the fly. And like, that's, like, I don't know how to build video games. I can just tell Claude to build me a video game. That's crazy.
That is amazing.
Yeah, my kids do it too. So
which is
they
great.
think Dad's cool because Dad works at a video game company. Yeah.
I'm sure your coolometer at home has gone up.
It's gone up a little bit.
Yeah. It's gone up in the legal community, I have to tell you that.
Right. That's good.
So we're going to open it up for questions after this next question. So feel free to think of your questions, and then if you have questions, go to the mic as well so that people on Zoom can hear you. So obviously with all of these different types of plugins, people are using it, but there are probably some times where you say, actually, like, don't automate that. Let's make sure humans are involved in there. Yeah. What pieces do you say we need to have humans involved?
Yeah, so if you poke around that GitHub folder, you'll notice that there's a couple dozen guardrails that are like encoded into these new plugins. I actually think it's like a huge step forward for these types of legal tools. Claude is supposed to, during the onboarding flow, find out if you are actually a lawyer or not. So it asks you, like, hey, tell me if you're a lawyer. If not, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to a legal professional as we get to certain gating decisions. Whenever it cites things, it has to let you know whether or not it's citing a primary source, and it encourages you to then go and look at the site to make sure it actually says the thing that Claude is telling you it says. So all of these are guardrails that keeps a human in the loop, makes sure that you're manually verifying things, and is ensuring there's not unauthorized practice of law. And it's encouraging people both to learn about their legal rights as well as to seek out legal services when they can be helpful. And that's important to me. I don't think these tools should only be available to practicing lawyers. I think people should be able to learn about their legal rights, just like I believe the law school library here is probably available to people who aren't lawyers. So, yeah.
Great. Well, let's start with Nate. He's our faculty co-director of the AI Initiative.
Thanks,
So,
and thank you both. This was a great intro for all of us, and I think particularly the students. Let me ask you to be a little more specific in response to Irene's earlier question, like what we should be doing here, like given your perspective on the world from your perch, how should law schools be changing? I mean, yes, acquaint them with the tools. I mean, literally, if you were the curriculum director here at Stanford Law School, what should we be teaching to prepare the sort of AI ninjas, to quote my friend Joe Grunfeld? That's the first question. Let me ask a second snarkier one, which is, how can Lagora and Harvey compete in this environment? I mean, isn't the story that I mean, Claude is just, the capabilities there are so strong and ever evolving. You've got this community. I mean, is that really going to be the future, sort of bespoke, community-driven AI legal tools as opposed to a kind of Westlaw Lexis model? Anyway, so those are two sort of separate.
Yeah, great questions. On the curriculum front, I really feel like law school helps people think a different way and learn how to think like a lawyer. And so I think continuing to focus on that and ensuring that people through the Socratic method and other ways are like learning how to really think. And AI can help with that. Like I wish I had a tutor, like an always-on AI agent when I was in law school. And so like shying away from integrating it into the curriculum, I think would be a mistake. I remember highlighting Erwin Chemerinsky's con law like outline over and over again, and like I wish I could have talked to someone like him during law school instead of having to like sit alone with my thoughts and try to figure things out. I think the classroom experience will be so much more pivotal now as well. Like laptops down, talk it through, like do more brainstorming. I also think having more like hands-on clinical experiences where people are using these types of tools so they can acquaint themselves with it will also be important. So yeah, I would say like embracing it, but in the right way and ensuring that you're carving out more traditional experiences while also making space for these more like AI native experiences. Yeah, and then, okay, the second question. So I think the real competition here is between legal teams and law firms that are willing to meet this moment and adopt these types of tools, and those that are reluctant or hesitant or burying their heads in the sand and not adopting these tools. So I'm kind of putting myself on the same side as a Harvey and Lagora there. We help power their experiences. Opus 4.7, the Claude model is leads many of the benchmarks on providing legal reasoning, and it helps power a lot of the experiences there. There's going to be a lot of customers who need all-in-one solutions and tools that I think Harvey and Lagora do an incredible job providing, and they're going to win a lot of customers. They're going to do great. I love seeing what they're building. I think it's really transformational. Again, the stuff we just launched was like me part-time doing stuff. They've got like full teams of people and sales staff who can really hold hands and help with customer support. And so I'm excited to see what they do with it, and I love partnering with them. Yeah.
Let's go to the question there.
Hi, Mike. This is Helen. So I'm a California lawyer, and I'm also running my AI native law firm on LinkedIn for the past 70 days with OpenClaw, Hermes Agent, and the manager agent from Anthropic. So my question will be something like from my own anxiety. So I saw your fantastic work already, and when I saw the tons of the skills and the domain knowledge in your plugins, so my question is like, maybe one day my client and also some, the business team, they can review the contract with your skills directly. So what's the mode of a lawyer and a legal counsel?
Yeah, this is a great question. Okay, so I think there's going to be an increasing demand for legal services as these tools evolve. All the guardrails that I suggested to Irene exist where it's like, you need to talk to somebody. So in the same way that personal computers and the advent of spreadsheets led to accountants being a little bit nervous about whether or not they'd still have a role. And this was happening like in the 80s and 90s, and it turned out there was an increasing amount of demand for those professional services because people could do QuickBooks and grow their business, but then they still needed an accountant to help them understand these super serious strategy decisions. So I think AI native law firms going up the stack and providing the professional services that are uncovered from non-lawyers using these types of tools to understand the decision tree, and it'll bring more educated questions your way. I think doctors are also grappling with this right now. It's WebMD led to people being like, oh no, what's happening to me? Now people are using AI to come hopefully more informed to doctor's appointments about things, and I know that's also an evolving area. Hopefully it's improving the client and lawyer relationship. Yeah, I think that's the direction things are headed, yeah. I think AI native law firms are particularly well suited to integrate there and understand that that's happening, yeah. Are we going 1-1?
We're going to go Zoom now.
Oh, we're going on Zoom.
Yeah.
Live studio audience.
Yes.
Let's go. All right.
One of the more upvoted questions is on security and enterprise trust. So these plugins, connectors on GitHub increase the attack surface for law firms. What is Anthropic's approach, security approach for these connectors? How do you answer enterprise IT teams already standardized on Copilot?
Awesome. It's a great question. What camera do I look in for Zoom? Right there? Straight in the back. Hi, Zoom. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of these admin controls on our enterprise plan. Shadow IT and rogue IT is real. I do think legal customers need to be aware of what tools people on your team are using. And with things like Claude Enterprise Plan, you can ensure that only the MCPs that you want your company to install are installed. So at the same time, I'm really excited about the open ecosystem because I think people are going to be building innovative new solutions. But I also think you need to review some of those before installing them. The Legal Builder Hub plugin was my attempt at codifying some of those types of analyses. So I've seeded the community with this plugin that you could then repurpose with your own internal governance policies and playbooks to surface and analyze whether or not a new plugin is right for you. But I do think the onus is still on the admins to use that. We also have a compliance API. We have data loss prevention tooling. We have rule-based access controls. Hit up trust.anthropic.com for more SOC 2 reports and all the other merit badges. But you're right. We're doing a bit of a thing here where there's the compliance enterprise version. We're also saying that an open ecosystem is great and that we want more developers to be there, but it does expand the security risk. But I think that's a trade-off that's worth having versus having a closed ecosystem where only large venture-backed SaaS companies can play the game. Yeah.
Emmanuel?
Hello. So you're scaring a lot of law students who are building and pitching legal tech startups. There was a meeting of a few of us yesterday, and we're like, oh my gosh, what if Anthropic just does our idea? And so
you raised your hand. You were a 1L, right?
Yes.
So you're already pitching
yes.
legal tech idea. Okay, yeah. That's cool.
And so in the analysis we see for law firms, we see them using like Westlaw, Lexis, the legacy system. Then we see them using Lagora or Harvey, like these new AI players. And then we see them using some general purpose GPT or Claude. And there's like the stack. We see that you can either go upstream like LexisNexis, do a bunch of case law if you aggregate that data, or you could go downstream and do like workflow stuff. So I'm wondering if you're gonna give advice to someone who's starting a startup in terms of like which direction we should swim towards so you don't swim in that direction, which one would it be? Not to, my professor made a great point, you guys could like kill Harvey in a day, basically. So we'd love to have your opinion there.
Well, you are at Stanford Law. We
Yeah.
have a very entrepreneurial spirit
Yeah,
here,
that's
even
cool.
within the law school.
Like my extracurriculars were like, I was like a college radio DJ as a law student. I was like, yeah, okay, wow, that's ambitious. Let's talk afterward. I don't know. I think that's really exciting, and this is such a great room. I know there's like some people with venture money in the room who would probably be interested in that. I think there's gonna be a lot of space as this amount of transformation happens in the industry. And so people building AI native law firms, I think that's an incredible opportunity. I was at the Generative Legal Conference on campus a few weeks ago. There was probably 3 AI native law firms in the room targeting specific legal practice areas and building AI specific plugins and tools. And there's companies like Crosby that is really leaning into things like Claude and the plugin to provide cheaper legal services, but at scale for companies that have more volume. General Legal is, I think, the name of another AI native law firm. Eve is doing a lot of this in like the sort of like plaintiff space. I think there's a lot of room for like services focused companies. As I mentioned, there's like a whole taxonomy of different types of law, and that each of these all-in-one solutions, or even further upstream at the model level, like there's only so much you can do, and I think people who are passionate about solving specific problems will be able to do it. And that guy's handing you a note right now, probably with some good advice too, so
Maybe
that's awesome.
some funding.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Crosby is actually a Stanford Law alum.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Is that Ryan?
I believe
Ryan? Yeah, he's awesome. Talk to him. He's got good advice too. And then let's chat afterwards. Where are we going next?
Over here.
Hi, my name's Michaela. I'm a former Stanford Law student, and now I'm one of the Gray Fellows, so teaching some of the 1Ls. So I'm coming at this focused on teaching, young people who are entering our profession. So I think we a little bit glossed over the difference between the enterprise tools and then the consumer-facing tools. And so I don't really think it's necessarily fair to say that we're just putting our head in the sand, like ignoring the attorney-client privilege issue here. And so as a teacher who's new to these tools, and then I need to go tell the 1Ls what to do, and this is open to the public, it'd be great if you could kind of explain the difference more concretely between the enterprise grade and what that means for confidentiality versus kind of these open tools, because if Claude for legal is just open, is there actually really a risk here when it comes to attorney-client privilege? Not saying I agree with the underlying decisions, but the law is what it is, and we kind of have to stick with it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do think this is like a more nuanced thing, and so I'm probably saying some like compliance upsell talking points there as I'm doing that. That's just me in my role. On the consumer plan for many of these tools, including Claude, there are training privacy preferences that you would need to have toggled off. And so ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, some of these open source tools can train on conversations that are happening on the consumer plans. So if you are using those and you have confidentiality matters that could leak or potentially even get regurgitated by models one day, that could be very problematic. I believe in the Hepner decision as well, it was a non-attorney asking legal questions on a consumer plan. There's some other legal analysis there that I don't necessarily agree with, but to your point, it's still like now part of the legal record around whether or not that company might give it over during a data request or a safety investigation that could violate confidentiality. Again, I think this is like an evolving thing that I would think is very ripe for a law review note for those of you who are writing student notes. The Colorado decision that came out this week kind of went in a totally different direction that said like a pro se person who was like writing to
The
a,
pro se, I think they give a little more grace to the pro se people
Yeah.
than when there's an attorney involved. So.
yeah, it was a little more grace to the pro se versus the like criminal matter where it was a non-attorney. So yeah, I think it's important to learn about this. So I do think like studying this and learning about it and discussing it in a legal institution, I do think part of what I'm doing in my response is encouraging those of you who work in industry to ensure you're on enterprise plans. Yeah.
Zoom.
Just to follow up, another hugely upvoted question on the tension between privacy and the functions that you mentioned. Is Claude going to launch a legal plan that has the same contractual protections as the enterprise plan, but with minimal or lower seat requirements for small
Got it.
law
Yeah,
firms?
I've heard this feedback a lot where solo practitioners are like, the minimum seat plan I think is like 5 seats, and solo practitioners want like a single seat enterprise plan or commercial. Feedback Zoom. Feedback has been heard, working on it. I will talk to our product team about delivering on that. This is all part of our existing Claude for Work or like Claude Enterprise and Team Plan package. So there's no additional cost. It's, I don't like referring to it as Claude for Legal because it's not like its own thing. It's like there's legal tools that are available inside of the existing enterprise and team plans. So thank you for those questions. Yeah. We have time for more?
Yeah, I think we have 5 more minutes.
Oh, great.
Hi, thank you for speaking with us today. My name is Chris. I'm also building my own product, but thankfully not in legal tech. So my question to you is actually more business related. So a couple of weeks ago, the AI Initiative had guest speakers from SoftBank about AI investing, and they made a prediction that as the incumbents in the AI industry keep growing in market share and value, that they're going to have to target all of their products to the general populace rather than smaller markets. And so they predicted that for entrepreneurs, like building AI apps is the way to go. But listening to your story, you are able to take something of your own specialty and be able to pitch it to Anthropic to actually build it into a releasable product. So I was curious if you can provide some insight into what the work culture is like within Anthropic for individuals to build their own products, as well as if you had to have any negotiations with Anthropic about the viability of building those products.
That's a great question too. Okay. I feel like there's a few things to untangle there. One is like the market condition and whether or not like there's space for app-specific things, and I think there is. And I think a lot of what model layer, frontier models are doing here is like helping pave the path and create the ecosystem. And so whether we had launched this thing or not, people were going to be building very interesting things in the legal space. And I think what we've done this week is show that there's like interest in this and that there's opportunity for these tools to be interoperable and for people to develop new solutions. And so that answers the first element of it. The second one was more of like the internal politic of how to get something out the door. I do think Anthropic is unique in that we were founded as a research lab focused on AI safety. We're a public benefit corporation, and a lot of what we do is in furtherance of that is like, what can we do with these models to help people get their best work done or in a safe way? And so there's a lot of the first product managers of the company were not product managers. They were researchers who were taking the model capabilities and then trying to figure out if there was product market fit. So when I joined the company, there was one product that was like Claude.ai, and then we hadn't even really launched the API out of beta yet in 2023. And so over time, we've been figuring out what works. So like Claude Code found an audience. At some point, we realized the model could see things and use a computer. So computer use capabilities emerged. And there's all these new types of product surfaces as the model becomes more capable, including legal reasoning as it moves up and its ability to understand the law and do these agentic tasks for days at a time autonomously, I think it just unlocks these new capabilities. And what we're doing in experimenting internally is like hopefully showing as a proof point that there's like a market for this tool. So Anthropic Legal is like customer zero. Is this helping us get our own work done? If so, let me show it to the product managers. We did a marketing series called Ants on Claude. We call ourselves ants at Anthropic. So as an ant on Claude, we did a video that showed how I used it. It kind of went viral on LinkedIn, and I showed that to the product team and was like, I think people are interested in building these things. And so that was kind of one of the sort of like breakthrough points for us that there's actually a market here. Yeah.
So closing out the Q&A, one of the things I know Nate likes to do is he always likes to think about the future and so I want to ask you about envisioning the future with me. So what do you see the role of the lawyer and the day-to-day of a lawyer in the future? Like even 5 years out, what does their day-to-day look like, and how does it differ from today?
Oh, five years, I've got no idea. That just feels so long from now.
Whatever projection you can make.
Okay, yeah, like we've been talking, I've worked at Anthropic 2.5 years. I'm reflecting back to 2023, and like the model could barely do things. And now it's like each week there seems to be these new capabilities. I do think there's going to be, like if lawyers used to like start their day by like reading their email, looking at what client questions were popping up, it does feel like there's going to be a chief of staff for everyone that monitors what client needs are, that you have dashboards that can help you on the fly tweak things, but that you'll be able to focus more on strategic matters, that you'll be able to like really do the type of work that I think many of you came to law school to think about, impactful work, not the busy, tedious stuff, the TPS reports of the world, to quote the movie Office Space, but like doing actual lawyering. And so I think that's where things are headed for the profession. I also think it's going to require people to be a bit more entrepreneurial and come up with AI native firms, or be the people within a law firm to figure out how to up-level a practice group by incorporating these types of tools. So it just seems different. I think the billable hour is also probably going to be something that we have a lot of conversations about in the upcoming years, and like more project-based outcome and like just moving away from that fee structure feels like something that every CLE or like panel discussion I do is touching on as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Also flying cars and robots and things like that, but like, yeah.
Hopefully that you can vibe code yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Well, for next week, I just want everyone to know we have another Mark presenting. We have our very own Professor Mark Lemley presenting on the topic of Gen AI and copyright law and authorship, fair use, and the future of creativity. So I hope you can join us next Thursday. And I also want to thank you so much, Mark, for coming in 2 days after a launch of a major product to join us and to give us a peek of Claude for Legal.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.